the Spicerer's table. Today we're going to be working with Mexican food, and we're going to actually make a famous Mexican dish from Veracruz. We're going to be making Huachinango a la Veracruzana. We're going to be serving it with frijoles charros and arroz a la Mexicana verde, which means Mexican green rice. Now we're first going to talk about spices. And the first spice we're going to talk about is this spice right here that we're looking at here. This is called herbas de olor. It is a combination of equal parts bay leaves, dried thyme, and marjoram. And it has been ground here. And this is going to be one of our flavorings for our charro beans. We're also going to be using in our charro beans ground cumin. The important spice next that we're going to talk about is for our salsa Veracruzana, which is Mexican oregano. And this Mexican oregano, as you can see, has been ground. It comes whole, it's dry, always comes dried, and Mexican oregano is very different from Mediterranean oregano, so you do not want to substitute Mediterranean oregano for this recipe. And we're going to be utilizing this Mexican oregano ground. I also have bay leaves. And what does a la Veracruzana mean? What a la Veracruzana means is that it's in the style of Veracruz, Mexico. And this is where fusion comes in. Veracruz, Mexico owes a lot of its flavors to Spain. And we're going to look at two of those flavors right now. Olives and capers. These are two of the main flavorings. We're also going to use in this recipe some pickled jalapenos, which I have chopped. These are the Mexican style ones in escabeche. As always, garlic and some onions, and we're going to cook it all in extra virgin olive oil. We are going to be using parsley here and tomatoes, fire roasted tomatoes. I have about 3/4 of a can here, and today we're going to be making this recipe with codfish because the fishmonger did not have any red snapper available. So I'll slide these back over here. We're going to talk about frijoles charros. Frijoles charros translates into charro beans. We're going to be using pinto beans, which I have sorted through, and I have them here. One of the main flavorings, bacon. And as also, we're going to use some lard. Also in this recipe, we're going to use onions and tomatoes, plus some garlic and some serrano chili that's been diced in the spices we talked about before. And that's for our charro beans. Next we're going to talk rice. We're going to make arroz a la Mexicana verde, which means Mexican green rice. What we're going to do here is we're going to make a cooking liquid out of roasted poblano pepper, roasted Anaheim pepper, one each, and one serrano. All of these have been roasted in the oven along with some onion. The onion was pulled out first. The other peppers were roasted for 5 minutes intervals on all sides, and then they were peeled, steamed, peeled, seeded, and chopped, and what I have here. And be careful to remove most of the seeds. We're also going to add to our cooking liquid 2 cloves of garlic and some tablespoon of parsley and a tablespoon of cilantro that have been chopped up. As you may not know, parsley is an unsung hero in a lot of Mexican dishes. So we're going to be using that today to flavor our rice. We're also going to be using some liquid chicken base, which is the other magic secret to our rice. And we're going to go into the kitchen now and start cooking, and the first thing we're going to start on is our beans. So I will see you in a moment. Welcome back to the Spicerer's table, and we're here at the stove, and we're going to deal with our frijoles charros first. We're going to turn on our burner to high heat in a heavy saucepan or pot, and we're actually going to add our fat here, which is our beautiful lard, which is about 3 tablespoons. I'm going to get it melted. Just get it melted here, real easy. And then we're going to add our bacon in here. And what I have here, excuse my reach, what I have here is about 2 rashers of bacon. Just ordinary applewood smoked bacon, or you could use hickory smoked bacon, whatever you like. Just regular bacon. Regular bacon is fine. As it's almost melted here, we're going to stir in our bacon. Get rid of our plate here. And what we want to do here is we want to render out this bacon. So we're actually going to start it on high heat, and then we're going to remove it down to moderate heat, about medium, so that the bacon can render. And then we'll add in our onions, our serranos, our garlic, and our spices. Besides the bacon, we're not going to add any salt at this point. We're going to add the salt later when the beans are fully cooked. And I have 1 package of beans that I have sorted through. I also have 2 quarts of water. I have 1 can of fire roasted diced tomatoes and juice. I have 1 serrano diced, about a couple cloves of garlic, and a small onion that's also been cut up fine. I'm going to give this a stir. Turn my pot handle around here so I can hold on to it here. You want to render this out, so once it gets going here, we'll turn it down a little bit. We're not looking for fully crisp bacon here. We're just looking to render out some of the fat to get it started, and then we're going to build our beans. Now, if you don't want to eat pork product of any kind, you could serve it with traditional frijoles a la Veracruzana, which are Veracruz-style black beans, and make it with vegetable oil rather than lard. But I think beans made with lard, they just taste better. I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit, all the way back to high, because I want to get some color on this bacon before we throw our onions in here. And as you can see, there is a decent amount of fat in there, about 4 or 5 tablespoons. That's what you want, because that's going to give the good flavor and help with the creaminess when we finish these beans. Okay. Now that I'm seeing just a little color on these, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to add in our onions. Break them in. We'll also put in our garlic and our serrano as well. Give it a stir. And now we can turn this down to medium so we can sweat our vegetables. Next, we're going to put in our spices, which is a tablespoon of ground cumin plus a teaspoon of our herbas de olor that we talked about earlier. And just let this cook. It's going to sweat out and become nice and lovely. Once everything is sweated out, we're going to add the rest of the ingredients, bring it to a boil, and then we'll drop it to a simmer, and we're going to simmer it uncovered for an hour and a half. Then we're going to check on it every half hour until the beans are tender, and then we'll be able to add salt to taste. And I'll show you the step to make it lovely and velvety smooth, where we're actually going to puree a small amount of our beans. I'm going to turn our heat back up. We're going to add our tomatoes. We're going to add our beans. And our water. Pour it in. I'm going to grab a paper towel here and wipe up the excess water here. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to bring this to a boil. Over high heat, and when it comes to a boil, we're going to drop it to a simmer, and we're going to let it simmer for 1.5 hours before we start checking the doneness of our beans. So we're going to leave that there to cook. And when we come back, we're going to be working with our arroz a la mexicana verde, Mexican green rice. I'll see you soon. Welcome back to the Spicerer's table. Our beans hit a boil, so I have reduced it to a simmer, and now we're going to make the cooking liquid for our rice. And it combines the what you sometimes might use, which is called sofrito, and its own cooking liquid. And what we're going to do is I've poured out the rice that I measured in here, because we're going to use the same cup to do our cooking liquid. And we're going to start by adding our vegetables in here, which is our serrano, Anaheim, and poblano, and onion. That's all been roasted, with the exception of the garlic, which is not roasted. We're going to place that in there. Get that spare chili in here. This is the ingredient that makes Mexican rice have the proper taste: liquid chicken base. This one contains no added MSG, and that's what you want to find. And we're going to put 2 tablespoons. It's going to be enough in here. You could use a little chicken stock, but this has a perkier flavor and works the best. We'll scrape all that out of there. And next is our herb component here, which is our cilantro and our parsley. Heaping tablespoon of each. Get that added in there. Get it leveled out. Now we're going to put water up to 1.5 cups. In total, we're going to add 1 3/4 cups of cooking liquid. But we're going to start with 1.5 because we're going to actually blend. We're going to take an immersion blender. If you don't have an immersion blender, you could do this in a regular blender. Immersion blender makes things very easy. Just process. Goal is to get everything smooth. Unlike the Mexican red rice that we made in the Injo's Kitchen episode, Cuban Night, the Mexican red rice, which when did we do that? I don't remember. Unlike the Mexican red rice, which we made in a previous episode, the carnitas episode, we're not going to be using any sazon in here. The sazon adds color, and and flavor. We don't need to add any color to this. So we're doing it without any sazon here, because that would color the rice yellow or orange, depending on which flavor of which type of sazon you use. As you can see, this is nicely blended, so we're going to remove our thing here. I'm going to blend it just a little longer. There's going to be little bits of herbs, which is perfectly fine for this. It's what you want, but you want all the vegetables to be completely puree. Okay, that's that. Now we're going to put water up to 1 3/4 cups. This is our cooking liquid. It's seasoned and ready to use. Okay. And we'll set that aside and we will deal with the rice soon here. We're going to start our rice. When we come back, we will start our rice. Welcome back to the Spicerer's table. We're first going to take a look at our beans here, which are just about finished. And I did end up adding about a cup's worth of water into our beans before they were finished, just so that they wouldn't dry out. We're going to season it with salt. You need a fair amount because it is not seasoned at this point. Give it a stir. And that is our beans. We're actually going to hold them off the heat in a second. Just give me a second here. Grab out a trivet here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a tasting spoon. We need to make sure that they're flavored. Needs a little more salt, but they're delicious. Okay. They have to cook just about 10-12 more minutes. Now that we've added the salt. Next we're going to do the rice. Similarly to the way we did the rice in our Carnitas Easy Mexican Night on the Enjo's Kitchen cooking series. I'm going to do it the same way, and I have 4 to 5 tablespoons of vegetable oil in here. And this is our jasmine rice, unwashed of course, that we have here. And this is our cooking liquid that's ready to go. Also I have ready to go, I have a lid that fits over my heavy pot. It needs to be a heavy pot or casserole. And then we also have a draining rig set up so they can drain off excess oil before we add our liquid. So while this heats up, we're going to pour in our rice. Just pour it all in. Now what we need to do here, we need to get the rice coated in the fat. Very important that the rice is coated in the fat. I'm going to turn on my vent for a second here just to clear out some smokiness. When the rice starts to sizzle, we're going to turn down the rice, and then we'll begin to fry. It's important that the rice starts to sizzle before you turn down the heat, so that we can guarantee that it's at There we go. We can see a sizzle, so we're going to turn it down to about 4, a little less than medium. And just keep stirring the rice. And we're going to set a timer for 10 minutes. We might not need the full 10 minutes, but that's plenty of time to fry the rice. You need to give yourself a window of about 10 minutes. And then it's going to take about 20 minutes for the rice to cook. This frying step is important to get nice, evenly separated out grains of rice. Some people make this with converted rice. I have before, but I think the jasmine rice works the best. I've even tried out basmati, which worked pretty decently, but the problem is the basmati breaks in this step, so it's not the ideal rice. I think jasmine works the best. And it's got a nice flavor to it too. Give our beans a stir here. And when our beans are done, we're actually going to plug our stick blender back in, and we're actually going to blend just a little bit of these beans in the pot just to add some creaminess to the texture. Okay. As you can see, the kernels are turning opaque white, which is what you want. It's important to do the step not over high heat because the oil will burn. I've even worked with people who showed me how to do this step in a deep fryer, and it goes very quickly. And I think doing it in the pot is the ideal method here. Just keep stirring. And all will be well. I've preheated the oven to 400 degrees. We're going to cook our fish in the oven. And we're actually going to season our fish in a minute here, and I'm going to show you another spice we're actually going to work with that we're going to season our fish with. An unusual spice for Mexican cooking, but it's traditional in this recipe. Timer here. Just keep stirring. I'm thinking just 2 more minutes and this rice should be ready to go. You can always, if you're worried, have the heat on at a lower temperature and just take longer. Because you don't want the rice to burn or the oil to burn or the rice to get very brown. It can get a little brown, which is what you want, but not like completely brown. Okay. I'm going to shut these beans off now. And I'm going to bring them over to, I have a trivet set up over here. We'll bring them over, just watch out, the handle is hot. Set them out here, okay. Next we'll come back to our rice here. Beautiful looking rice. It's all white and opaque. That's looking good here now, so I'm actually going to remove this from the heat. And we're actually going to slide it into our bowl and perform our step. We just need to get rid of some of this fat, some of this oil, because we don't need to eat it all. If we were working with sazon or onions or anything of that nature, you could leave some in, but we're not going to. We have no need to do that here. So we've removed all the oil. We're going to place the rice back in. Get rid of our container here. Okay. Now we're going to turn the heat to high. And we're going to pour in our liquid. And it's going to sizzle when it goes in. Because it's going to immediately come to a boil, which we will drop our cover down and we will turn it to low. That's it. This is going to cook 20 minutes. We'll set this timer for 20 minutes. And after that 20 minutes, we're going to slide it off the heat to finish. Because it's going to finish another 10 minutes off the heat. Now we're going to slide over here and we're going to finish our beans and season our fish. I'll be out of the camera shot just for a moment here while I set up. I'm going to slide the camera down here. Just pardon me here. Okay, there we go. Now you can see into the bean pot here. This is our beautiful beans. Now to finish these beans, we're just going to take our stick blender, turn it on high, and we're just going to blend it just a little bit, leaving most of it unblended. A little bit of blending is going to give a little bit of creaminess to our beans. Okay, let's shut it off now. And that's our beans. They're beautiful. Excellent. Which we're going to slide our beans over here while we work on our fish. This is our fish, and I have it in a pan that I have in an oval baking dish. This is enamel cast iron because we're going to serve in this dish as well. And this is our codfish, and I just greased it with some extra virgin olive oil on the bottom. We're also going to put some extra virgin olive oil on the top of our fish. Just a little bit. Don't need too much. And we're going to season our fish with salt. Good Mexican sea salt, works well here. And the unusual seasoning here is we're going to be using nutmeg. This is traditional for this recipe to season the fish with a little nutmeg, so we're going to put a little bit on here. You don't want too much. That's plenty. If you put too much nutmeg on this fish, then it's going to taste very strong. And last but not least, lime juice. Just a little bit of freshly squeezed lime juice on the fish. And I'm going to put just a few grains of black pepper. And that's our fish. This fish is going to take about 12 minutes in the oven. We're going to leave it here. And when we come back, we're going to look at our rice. And we're going to bake our fish and make our Veracruzana, the sauce, salsa Veracruzana, when we come back. I'll see you soon. Welcome back to the Spicerer's table. We have 1 minute left on our rice here. And when that 1 minute is up, I'm going to transfer it to a trivet, and it needs to sit at least 10 minutes, which is the final process of the rice to finish steaming, which is what we're going to do here. And when that happens, we're going to put our fish in the oven, and we're going to make our Veracruzana sauce. And along with our other ingredients that we talked about, we also have some freshly squeezed lemon juice. And we're going to use beautiful extra virgin olive oil. We're just waiting on our rice to finish here, and then I'll slide it off. Make sure it goes onto a burner that's off. Some recipes even call for opening it up and draping a towel in there to catch condensation, to catch any last bit of condensation and steam vapor, but I think it's fine just leaving it covered. The handle is hot, so I'm actually going to use a pot holder here to carefully remove it from the heat. And while we do that, I'm going to reset my timer for 12 minutes so we can do our fish. And now we'll slide our fish, which we seasoned, into the oven, into the middle of the oven. And we'll slide our pan onto the heat to make the sauce. And we're going to turn the heat up to high, and we're going to film the pan with extra virgin olive oil. Let's put about 3 tablespoons in there, should be fine. And the first thing we're going to put into our pan here is our onions. And they'll start to sizzle here. Also at this point, we're going to add our spices, which is our bay leaves and our Mexican oregano. That is important to put that in at this time so that we can bloom the Mexican oregano and the bay leaves to get the flavor going. And we're going to let that cook for a few minutes. I grab the extra dry vermouth because there is wine in this recipe. Now at this point I'm going to season with a little salt. We're going to watch our salt because we do have 3 salt forward ingredients. So we're going to watch our salt here. We're going to turn the heat down to medium so we can sweat out our onions because they need to be fully sweated before we proceed with adding any of the other ingredients, because you don't want anything to be al dente when you're eating this recipe. Okay. Also at this point I'm going to put the garlic in here now, so the garlic has a chance to cook for a few minutes. Just be careful it doesn't burn. Add that. And if you love garlic, you can absolutely put more garlic in here if you like, but it shouldn't be too heavy on the garlic because you got all these other nice flavors that you're competing with. So next in, pickled jalapenos. We're going to let them cook a few minutes. And you can put in more if you want a hotter recipe, but I think that's going to be plenty. And when I cut them up, I didn't take any of the seeds of the rosette. You want all that good spicy flavor in there. Next in, we're going to put in our, we're going to turn the heat to high now. So we're actually going to add our tomatoes. in. Give it a good stir. We're going to add a little more salt just for our tomatoes. We're also going to add in our capers and our olives, which I left them whole because they are small olives. If I'm using the large queen-sized olives, then I would go forth and slice them in half. Now we need to put some liquid in here, and we're going to actually put white wine, extra dry vermouth. I'm going to go with about a half of a cup in here. You could use any dry white wine you like. I like dry vermouth, so that's what I'm using today. And now we're just going to let this mixture cook. To finish, we're going to use lemon juice and parsley, and then we'll taste for salt, seasoning. The parsley is going to go in at the last point. Now that this is boiling, we're going to turn it down to medium and let it cook. Still got 6 minutes on our fish. And we will also, at the end of this recipe, we're going to put a drop back of our extra virgin olive oil for its flavor. Because you lose some when you cook with it. Just cap up the wine here. I'll show you this wine here. I use this Noi Pra. I also like Martini and Rossi. This is extra dry. This is great stuff. There are cheaper brands out there that are also imported from Italy and France that are very good. Use what you like. And if you don't like vermouth, use dry white wine. But I think vermouth works the best for cooking, and it lasts almost indefinitely if you're careful about keeping it. Some people say to store it in the refrigerator, but I've never had a problem storing it on the shelf. So I'm going to get a tasting spoon here, and we're going to taste for seasoning. I want to make sure that we have enough salt in here. Good. I'm going to put a little more salt. It's delicious. It's beautiful. It's flavorful. It's going to be lovely. Now we are going to just spoon this sauce directly over our fish. Do not eat the bay leaves. If you're really worried about it, they can be removed right before you scoop the sauce onto your fish. But I'm just going to leave them in because they'll look nice in presentation. You'll be able to see all these beautiful colors in here. And for the time it takes to cook the fish, that's the time it takes to cook the sauce. It's very quick cooking. And if really need be, you could cook it ahead and keep it in a double boiler and just keep it warm and ready to go. But you can just cook it along with the fish at the same time. The parsley over here and my olive oil. I'm actually going to get rid of my sheet here for the moment. We're not going to use sheet anymore for right now, because I do want a place to put my fish, which is out of the oven. It's going to go right there. I'm actually going to look at my fish here, and I'm actually going to use a fork here to test the fish for flakiness here. I'm actually going to add 2 minutes to my fish cooking time because the fish is taking longer than expected, but we will finish this sauce. Right now I'm going to turn off the heat. We're going to add in a little bit of fresh lemon juice. Don't need much. Dash more salt just to finish. Then we're going to stir in our parsley. It's important here to use parsley and not to use cilantro. The parsley has the special flavor here. Cilantro would be too strong. We're also going to put in our little drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. And just stir it in. And then we'll keep this warm while we wait for our fish. Take a look at our fish again here. It's getting close. And this fish will comfortably serve 3 people. And if you're using actual Pacific red snapper, the fish is going to cook in a little less time than it takes to cook this cod. This codfish is a large piece, and it's a lot thicker, so it takes longer to cook. So you want to make sure it's cooked properly. You don't want to eat undercooked fish. Cod is one of the fishes where it needs to be cooked pretty much through. There's going to be a little moisture in it, but you don't want... It's not like salmon where you can let it go cook under, or ahi tuna where you're just searing the outside and leaving the inside raw, which is called blue rare. This is one that has to be cooked on the well done side. But it's delicious fish, mild flavored. It works wonderfully with this sauce. If you can get the real snapper Veracruz, the real snapper, it's even better. And when we sit down at our table, we're going to talk about the bastardization of this recipe. Which I found at many Mexican restaurants. This recipe is bastardized for an American palate, which you find a lot. It's like the American style crispy taco with ground beef. It's not a real taco. Real taco is in 2 heated tortillas that have been sandwiched together, corn tortillas. It has a meat filling of choice, and then it usually has onion, cilantro, and some form of salsa, or maybe a squeeze of lime. That's a real taco, but it gets bastardized when it comes here. They do have crispy tacos in Mexico for sure, and they're called tacos dorados, and the taco filling is stuffed in the tortillas, which have already been warmed in some oil, and then they're fried with the filling on the inside, and they become crispy on both sides. It's like a pan fry almost. So we will talk about the bastardization of this recipe. I'm going to check our fish. I'm going to actually pull it out. Let's see what we're looking at here. Yes, sir. Our fish is beautiful. Now I'm going to turn the oven off, turn the timer off. Grab a little ladle here, and I'm going to take out the grease that's accumulated in the bottom here. There's no point in keeping this fat in here. Okay. Now that the fish is out of the oven, I'm We're going to grab a spoon and we're going to spoon our beautiful sauce over our fish. Often for this recipe, the fish is baked with the sauce, but I think it's better to do them separately. And I'm going to leave extra sauce in this pan here, which we can save. And when we come back, we'll be at the table and I'm going to show you how to serve. Welcome back to the Spicerer's table, and we are now at the table. And this is our beautiful codfish a la Veracruzana, taken from the Huachinango a la Veracruzana that is this title of this episode. This is our rice that we have, that I fluffed, and it's beautiful. There's our frijoles charros. This is our arroz a la mexicana verde. And we're going to talk a tiny bit about the bastardization of this recipe while I show you how to serve. And I've seen this recipe in many Mexican restaurants, but it's not prepared this way. The snapper fillets are battered and deep fried, which gives them a different take on it. They still call it a la Veracruz, but it's different. So, and they serve it over Mexican red rice and not this green rice that I like to serve it with. And then the sauce is made from jalapenos and sour cream. I'm just going to cut a piece of fish here. We don't want to eat the bay leaves. So the fish on our plate. And then we do want some of this beautiful sauce. You could also put a little extra sauce in a sauce boat if you like. And then as a beautiful option here, if you like, and I do, a little dollop of real good Mexican sour cream. Make sure you get the crema mexicana here. Just put a little dollop on top, and it just adds a last minute little bit of richness to this recipe. And there you have it, from my kitchen to your kitchen. Beautiful codfish Veracruzana with Mexican green rice and charro beans. I hope you enjoy this recipe, and stay tuned for more recipes. And we're going to be delving into Indian cuisine soon and Hungarian cuisine soon, so stay tuned for that. Thank you very much. Peace out. Keep it real.